As Rangers fans, we know that a goaltender is the backbone of a hockey team. At Abundant Wealth Management, we are your financial backbone, offering financial planning, wealth management, tax planning, and estate planning services. To schedule your free consultation, head to www.abundant-wealth.com. That's www.abundant-wealth.com. Abundant Wealth Management. Live, plan, triumph.
You're listening to Rangers Radio, your home for end-to-end coverage of the New York Rangers. With your hosts, Brendan Azoff, Zach Domino, and Steve Pappas. Blue Shirts fans, the puck drops now.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to Rangers Radio. Off-season editions are in full swing. But I know the last time I was on this was 2 weeks ago. And, you mentioned, Steven, that we are going to have news almost every episode to talk about. And that's still the case today. So we're going to talk about the playoffs, get you caught up if you're not tuned in to what's going on in the series around the league. We're going to talk about the news that's breaking today in regards to Joe Micheletti. The Rangers needed a whole new broadcast booth now on the TV side. And then we're going to talk about the coaching. And the rumor mill is swirling around with the different coaches that will be available to the Rangers, but I think we all have our eyes on one guy, and it seems to be the way that things are going to go. But before we dive into all of that, boys, how's everything going?
How dumb are we? How dumb are we to think that week in and week out we're going to come on this show and say there's nothing to talk about, it's the off season, what could we possibly talk about? And then we realize that the team that we talk about is desperate to be in the spotlight at every turn of the season, no matter if they're in it or not. They have to be involved. And right now the Rangers are involved, obviously, with Joe Micheletti retiring. That's something completely different. But, coming out today about 3 or 4 hours ago, it's not officially official, but, it's the worst kept secret in the National Hockey League that Mike Sullivan is going to be the next head coach of the New York Rangers. And I think when we all saw the Rangers account tweet earlier today, that's all what we assumed it was going to be, not Joe Micheletti retiring. But
it's good for us content people, though. I will say that.
I mean, it's great. But, here we are, week two of our official off season. And we still have things to talk about, which is really good. And, however you slice it, I know, Micheletti was some people's cup of tea, was not some people's cup of tea. But, this is the end of an era. I mean, we talked about Sam, and honestly, Zook, I know I'm going right in before we even get to exchange pleasantries with you, but this is the end of an era, right? Like, for 20 years it was Sam Rosen and Joe Micheletti, and good on Joe. I think it gets lost in all this. I'm sure this was a decision he made a long time ago, months ago, to not step on Sam's tour at the end of the year. I mean, he's a guy that's been doing it a long time as well. So he deserved his farewell tour, but he understood the assignment of Sam Rosen's the guy. We'll let him have his time. I'll just pull the rug out from everybody on a random Thursday in May for some reason. But good for him. Great career. It's going to be weird. Obviously we got Kenny. We don't know who's going to replace Joe, but it's going to be different. It's going to be very different watching Ranger games next year, and maybe that's just what this franchise needs. It needs some sort of culture shift, whether it's in the booth or on the ice or behind the bench, to get somebody going. But good on Joe. Congratulations to him. Hell of a career, and will definitely be missed in the booth next year.
Well, the Rangers and Knicks are both the moronic stepchildren of James Dolan, and if you know anything about how James Dolan has accumulated his wealth via Cablevision, he derives value from just having eyes on his product. That's what Cablevision is. That's what TV providers look for. So, growing up most of my life, obviously the Rangers haven't won anything since 94 when I was born. They've been decent, but they've had stretches where they haven't been that good. The Knicks, really, until, Carmelo a little bit, but really until the Jalen Brunson years, have been an absolute joke. So those two teams a lot of times have just derived their value by being talking about regardless and without correlation to how good of teams they are. So that's just to say, yes, we are very stupid, to answer Steven's question, for thinking that there would be no conversation about the Rangers when they were out of it. because there's always conversation about the Rangers, just like there's always conversation about the Knicks, because that's what James Dolan wants, and that's the type of culture that James Dolan has brought to these teams, right? Really, until World Wide West and Leon Rose with the Knicks, both teams are quick triggers with the GMs, quick triggers with the coaches, quick triggers with the players. Don't really allow you to build on things if the present value isn't as high as he wants it to be. So, yeah, I mean, from a content standpoint, that's great if you're talking about either of those teams. I mean, the other side of that is we almost wish Dolan went back to how he was, years ago when it comes to Chris Drury, because if this was going on probably a decade ago, Chris Drury probably would have been fired by now. But there's a little stability between the two teams in the Garden right now with the Knicks and the Rangers when it comes to management. So, look, there's always going to be something to talk about with the teams. And right now for the Rangers, for the Knicks, it's about dealing with those pesky Pistons who are giving them problems in the series. Probably should be over, and the Pistons should have taken it. But for the Rangers right now, it's the coach. It's the coach, and it's funny that we're so not desperate, but we're so excited to talk about a position that is vacant every 2 years. So we're talking about someone who may not be here for too long. But look, I'll cede to you guys because I always say, look, I love the Rangers, and I'm a diehard Rangers fan. And I know as much about the Rangers as I do about the Mets, Knicks, and Steelers, who are my 3 other teams. But when it comes to the leagues in general, I'm just way behind the times with the NHL. But the 2 things that I'll say about Mike Sullivan, and this is to throw a little water on the fire, and I'll let you guys take it. From everything I'm reading, he just seems almost like a souped up Peter Laviolette with a little bit more of a recent resume. And what I mean by that is I've seen a lot of people say he's a 5-on-5 savant, and you give him a goaltender like Igor that he's never had before. And you look at the goaltending from the Penguins this year, it was comically bad. When you looked at goals saved above expectation, he'll be able to put it together. And that's kind of what we were hoping with Laviolette. He could kind of fill in the gaps and maybe bring to the table what the Rangers, didn't have. And the second thing is he overrated? Has he had teams that should have gotten farther in the playoffs that have absolutely shat the bed? Has he had all-time players, specifically Sidney Crosby, and you can talk about Malkin, and you can talk about players throughout his time there that, would do well in the regular season, and then those players would still perform in the postseason, obviously. But it seems like, besides those 2 cups, which you obviously can't get rid of because they happened, Penguins fans sometimes are freaking out by how such good regular season teams seem to fold during the postseason. So I'll pass it back to you guys to kind of talk about a little bit of, are Rangers fans too excited about a potential hire in Mike Sullivan and how much that could raise this team's ceiling?
See, we'll dive back into who replaces Joe Micheletti in a little bit, but you mentioned quick triggers, right? And I think Mike Sullivan's a great head coach. I think his resume, like you said, it kind of speaks for itself. And I take what Penguins fans are saying with a grain of salt, because if you are a team, right? I mean, you see it every day on this show alone, let alone what we read on X and social media platforms about the Rangers. Fans are the quickest people to react and get upset and have the emotional reaction. But, Mike Sullivan had a team the last 3, 4, 5 years that wasn't up to the caliber of the Stanley Cup level teams that they had, and they were still making noise. I mean, I remember sitting watching games. The Penguins would have Crosby and Malkin playing, and then you would look at their 3rd and 4th line guys, and they were just all no names, all doing the right thing, and somehow they were winning hockey games.
How about when they beat us this year with nobody?
That
game stuck out to me.
I think that Mike Sullivan is a great head coach. Now, I keep going back to the stat, and obviously stats are meant to be broken, right? And trends are meant to be broken. But the only head coach in the modern era that's won a cup with multiple teams is Stan Bowman. And I think that there's this overwhelming feeling across, and it's not just the Rangers, but it's all GMs throughout the NHL that see the name of the guy that has experience. And they go, oh, my group has some veteran guys on it. Let's go with the coach that's been around the block. But it doesn't work. And historically, it hasn't worked. And all you have to do is look at this one stat. And it's pretty easy to Google. It took me 2.5 seconds. So I just don't understand why that's the need. And I don't have an issue with Mike Sullivan if he were to be hired. I think it's a better option than the Rick Tocchet and Tortorella names that we saw being thrown out there. The issue that I have, right, is Tampa just got eliminated, and there's rumors swirling around with John Cooper. You're not going to wait to see what happens there and do your due diligence. You're not going to wait and see if David Carl would be interested or some of the other head college coaches that have good, up and coming careers, or, I feel like if they make this decision as soon as they did today, and for those that are wondering what we're talking about, Vince Bercogliano put out on X today that nothing's official yet, but they're closing in on Sullivan as their next head coach. So to me, it's almost less of an issue with the hire itself, even though, and Zooks, you heard me 2 years ago talk about how I want the Knobloch instead of the retread. I think it's more of an issue of, if you're actually, say this news breaks tomorrow, you're not going to wait to see what Tampa does. You're not going to wait to interview these other guys, because trust me, there's no way you were interviewing Carl and all the other head coaching candidates this quickly. So it seems like Drury talked about for years having Mike Sullivan. He's available. And all of a sudden, instead of doing what he said he was going to do in his press conference, which is interview everybody, he narrowed back in on one guy. And if they win a cup, by all means, great hire. If they don't win a cup, we're going to come back and have this conversation again at some point in the future and talk about it was a mistake. But the reality is the only mistake that they would be making if they were to hire Mike Sullivan is just doing it too quickly without doing their due diligence outside of it.
Yeah, and I think I'm not going to be upset if they hire Mike Sullivan, but I also sit here and we were lied to. That's all. We were lied to by Chris Drury at his press conference. They weren't turning over every stone. It was until Mike Sullivan became available. That was the guy, and it's been the guy for 2 years. If he became available last summer after the President's Trophy, they would have fired Laviolette then, and they would have went and hired Mike Sullivan. That's how much of a boys' club Chris Drury runs. And when we were told that they were going to turn over every stone, that's a lie. That's 100% a lie. They were never going to do that, especially with Mike Sullivan being available now. They had their guy. They're not going to wait for Peter. They're not going to wait for John Cooper to be available. I don't even know if David Carl is a guy that I have been, I've said a bunch of times on this show that I would like him, and I think he's going to be a great NHL coach. I don't know if he would want to come into this situation. When we talked to Colin last week, it sounded very, very clear that they were not going with a new hire. But at the same time, David Carl's not just a new hire. It's not just a David Quinn where he was successful at the college level, so let's bring him to the NHL and see if he would work. David Carl's won 2 national championships and 2 World Junior Championship gold medals. He is able to learn and coach the young guys to success. And that is a coach that the Rangers haven't had maybe ever. Is that fair to say? Maybe ever? Is Tom Rennie the last guy that could have been like a bit of a play? And I don't want to say players coach, but I feel like every coach that they've had has been this, just shithead that it's either my way or the highway, and there is no.
They brought in Gallant because he was supposed to be a players coach.
Yeah, no way.
That was the whole. I remember every bulletin board headline was Rangers bring in Gallant, player-friendly coach.
Gerard Gallant gives off like super villain vibes, like just the way that he is and the way that he looks. He would be a villain in a James Bond movie. But my point being is that we were lied to. There's not a search. There's not due diligence being done. It's the second Mike Sullivan became available. You're not going to wait and see if John Cooper becomes available. You're not going to go out and really pursue David Carl. Your guy, your buddy is available. So you're going to go get him. And that's why this franchise is where it's at right now, because they have a short-sighted GM running the show.
So I want to, before you go again, Zook, there's something that was happening that's very interesting to me. And Tampa Bay Lightning, right? Obviously, they just got eliminated by the Florida Panthers in 5 games. They did a whole, revamp this offseason. They let their longtime captain go. They put together a team that on paper and throughout the course of the season was the highest scoring team in the NHL. And then they kind of fell flat against the Florida Panthers, who looked like a wagon yet again. But I think out of all the organizations, the Lightning kind of stand out to me as the team that's done it the right way for the longest time at this point. And by that, I mean they have these star players that they've kind of brought themselves. They have these supplemental pieces that they keep finding new players to fit those roles. Their defense changes. They're still good there. And then they have the longtime goalie in Vasilevsky. John Cooper was their head coach, right? And right now he still is their head coach. There's no inkling yet that he's been fired, or that could just be a rumor that they're looking to replace him. But their assistant coach is Jeff Halpern. And Jeff Halpern's a name that's on the coaches, board across the league right now as somebody that teams are interviewing. And if they think that he's the next guy, the next John Cooper to come in, be a first-time head coach and take that role, well, maybe people should start to follow what Tampa's doing, because I don't know if you know this, but John Cooper wasn't a head coach in the NHL before he took that Tampa job, and look what happened there. So all signs keep pointing to the teams that have success long-term, the teams that wind up winning cups, hire a guy that doesn't have the history of bouncing around the league, hasn't won it before, is looking to grow with the team. And to me, the Rangers keep pigeonholing themselves into, like, okay, our window was 4 years, and that was 4 years ago. Now we got a new head coach again. Our window is only a couple of years because we have to look at the contract situation. But they keep giving themselves a new window of a short-term 2 years, 3 year window, where it's like, how about you revamp the roster over the course of 3 to 4 years? Keep some of the core pieces you have now, implement new pieces around the way, like everybody else that's good has done, but have a coach that you could hire that might be around for a longer term and give him a little bit of a leash. And it just doesn't seem like that's something that they're interested in doing. And it kind of is the same way that they have their roster management and construction right now. It's all guys that, sure, were good at one point, sure, have big names, but aren't they a little bit past their prime? Like, was getting JT Miller the right thing to do that offseason, but the team that they had, probably not. Is he going to be around for a while? Yes. You look at Chris Kreider, Mika Zibanejad, Artemi Panarin, all these guys. It's time to change the way that they do things. And I think until they actually start to implement that from the top down, you're not going to see the results you want. And I know, Zook, you put this in the group chat. It's like, okay, if they hire Mike Sullivan, they'll probably be in the Eastern Conference Final next year, which is all fun. But after that, what happens? Because the last two head coaches before whoever is going to be the new bench boss now were ECF year one, down year the next year, gone. So to me, why would a young coach ever consider that job? And that's the problem.
Yeah, and to be honest, I know I always put my hands up and say that when it comes to the rest of the league, especially the Western Conference, I'm a little behind everyone else. But I've watched a lot of postseason hockey this year just because I enjoy it. And the Rangers, I mean, as much as we give them shit, they're normally in it to some length. So I miss it. So I watched the postseason. I think there's a chance Chris Drury watches less other hockey than I do, because you don't need to look at the standings to see how far the Rangers are away from the rest of the league. Like, it looks like these teams that I'm watching legit have like jetpacks on their skates and are just moving around and are just flying around and are being physical and are being fast and are being the first to the pucks. And I know this is an extreme example because they're one of the best at it. And I know we normally don't have a problem with them in the playoffs, so it's not like we have to look up to them. But the Hurricane have been to the second round the last 7 seasons, which is nothing to, blow your nose at. And I watched most of that Devils Hurricanes series. That's relentless, man. Like, I don't even know how we beat them, because that style of hockey is just like an incredible style of hockey. And I laughed. I was talking to my wife about it because she watches the Rangers and she hears me complain all the time. Like, imagine the Rangers players that we have now trying to play that style. Like, those guys at the first intermission would just not come back on the ice. Like, there's just such a different way to play hockey from the way that the Rangers are constructed that you can look at the standings and count the points. You can talk about the fact that we were in it until a few weeks before the season ended. We're nowhere close to competing for a Stanley Cup. Our only chance is what we've hoped for really for the past 20 years, that the guy in between the net stands on his head enough that you can win 4 before the other team wins 4. That's been our recipe for the last 20 years. And if you ask me what's our best chance next year, if we run back the same roster, it's the same thing. So like you're saying, Brendan, there needs to be a complete overhaul. This team is absolutely nowhere close in philosophy which is 50% of it, which you hope changes with a new head coach. But the other 50% is the roster. And we just don't have guys that play the way that you need to play to win games. Like, there's just no names around this league that are just relentless in skating when they're on the ice, and they're forechecking and they're throwing their bodies around. And it's almost like very unique to see like how over the course of 2-3 years, the game has just completely passed the Rangers by. Maybe even in one calendar year, but it's just, they got to literally throw out anything that they've done in the past with this core. And it needs to be a complete new philosophy, pucks deep, forechecking, relentless forecheck. It's what all the good teams seem to be doing.
Zook, you're right and wrong at the same time when you talk about the way to win games. You're right in the philosophy, right? It's the downhill, north-south, get it in, be a pain in the ass on the forecheck. But I think Carolina's doesn't work. Carolina's system doesn't work. And if you go back and look at the teams and the goaltenders specifically that they beat, they're quantity over quality. They'll shoot 50 times a game. They'll have 50 shots on goal every game. Maybe 5 of them are good. And if you get a goaltender, Shesterkin's beaten him twice. I'm trying to think. Bobrovsky has beaten him. When they get the really good goaltenders, that quality over quantity, it hurts them, because then these guys, these Shesterkins, the Bobrovskys, they get in these rhythms that they're able to see pucks consistently, and they're able to, for the most part, stop the majority of them. It's when you play an Akira Schmid or a Jacob Markstrom, or I mean, even Logan Thompson in the next round. I think Carolina can get through Washington on the sole purpose that their goaltending is just not good enough. Yeah, and that could overwhelm.
The other side of that, and I agree with you. That's just an extreme example, but you could talk about Florida. You could talk about any team.
That's where I was.
You're saying they all play the same way, but like the other side of that is not only do they struggle against good goaltending, they have bad goaltending. Like, let's just say Igor Shesterkin was in between the pipes for us and the Hurricane last year. They're probably beating us.
Yes, they don't have
a 7-game series. So like it's the combination of both that. Yeah, obviously it's harder to win against good goaltending. They have bad goaltending. They're just an extreme example, but you know, the really good teams probably don't go that hard at the relentless forecheck. It's like,
it's also just
like it's like crazy that these guys just put, it's like you're saying,
100 games.
That.
If you play 110, 112 games in a season, it's hard to play like that for that many games. And that's a lot of the reason why the Hurricanes don't go far in the playoffs.
What they did to the Devils in that first overtime of Game 5 is the most tilted I've probably, and that's like when it works. That's what you can get when it works. And obviously the Devils are a different beast where I don't think they're that good to begin with. Obviously a lot of that has to do with injuries that they have, which absolutely suck if you look at how many guys were out. But yeah, like you're saying, there's a sweet spot, but like the Rangers must lead the league in getting the puck on a forward stick in their zone, and that guy just trying to carry it into the defensive zone. You got to chip pucks and send 2 guys at the defenseman. And it's so funny because like other teams do it to us and we struggle with it because, you know, defensemen around the league, unless they're elite, can sometimes struggle with moving the puck, especially when your back is to the rest of the ice. And it's just such a simple style of hockey that works. It's so funny. It's kind of like what's happening in football right now, where there was so much passing, so much all this. And then you look at the Eagles, offensive line, defensive line, it's a man's game. And it's like hockey, when you break it down, dump the puck into the zone and send 2 guys after it.
Yeah. That's the thing, though, is you don't necessarily have to be a chip and chase, go in and get it forechecking team to win. You can carry, but you have to be creative in your carry. You can't just have one guy trying to go through 8 people. You have a forward at the blue line. You have a give and go. You know, almost to if you want to take a look at like power plays and how they, you know, drop it back and give it to a guy with speed. The Rangers, A, don't have speed, and B, don't have the creativity to be able to carry the puck into the zone. So on top of that, I'm getting off track. There is an entire protest going on outside my building right now, and they are. I'm going to turn my camera around if you can see it. They are like in the street. I don't know if you can see it all the way down there.
It looks crowded.
Yeah,
they're just walking the street right now. So for some reason, it everything like the sound carries, so I just hear it clear as day from up here.
But did you guys see the list? Like, I was shocked that there were teams that you think are fast, that they're stars for miles per hour, which is just one way to gauge speed because a lot of it's change in direction and stuff like that. But the Rangers had like no players on the slowest 50 guys in the league, where like Matthew Tkachuk was ranked as the slowest guy. But
middle of the
you know,
pack.
throw all that stuff out the window, just like it's actual absolute value of just speed in a vacuum plus the style of play. Just in totality, the Rangers are by far, because it doesn't matter how fast you are if you don't move, right? And the Rangers just don't move, so their speed is zero.
I'm glad you said that, because this is my thing, right? This year you throw it out. It's like one of those bad movies that you watched and you're never going to see it again, right? It's done. I think the biggest problem was the man-to-man defensive system that just never got changed. And to me, that's the single reason that Carolina has yet to win a Stanley Cup, is because as you start to get longer in the postseason, the grind starts to take control. You watch their defense start to give up more and more high grade A opportunities, because that's just a deteriorating system to play. And the Rangers do not have the foot speed offensively or defensively to do that. So whoever comes in next, and Mike Sullivan, I've watched his teams play. They do not play a man-to-man system. A lot of these coaches that they're looking at, that should be the first question, right? So I think by switching back to the zone, it's going to – this team will be better next year. The other thing is, it's not a lack of speed as much as it is a lack of movement. And the people that have to be moving more are the people without the puck. If you watch the best teams in the league, right, like – I watched the Colorado-Dallas series has been unbelievable in terms of the quality of hockey that's being played. If you watch the puck carrier all game, you're missing 95% of the action that's going on, because every other player on each team is moving nonstop. There is nobody standing around. And you watch the power play for the Rangers 2 years ago, last year, and before this current season, they were moving. There was a 5-man unit that was cycling. Adam Fox was at the top. He would move down the right. The guys would rotate. This year, as soon as they started struggling, it became stagnant. The zone entries were 3 guys lined up on the boards, no speed at all. That's super easy to defend. They can't generate the momentum that the defense backs getting can. And to me, that's where the Rangers' pitfalls were. I think any coach that comes in that is vying for this job, in order for them to be like, I could change this team, those are the 2 areas that they're looking at and circling right away, saying that this has to change. That play style does not work at this level anymore, and it has to be different. But when you look at the Eastern Conference, especially this year, when I was doing my bracket, in my mind, it was whoever won the Dallas-Colorado series was going to be playing whoever won the Florida-Tampa series in the Stanley Cup final. I stand by that. I picked Colorado and Tampa, so I'll probably be wrong on both. But I stand by that prediction that whoever wins those series are going to meet. But if you look at the rest of it, right, I watched Washington-Montreal. Montreal was outmatched. They gave it a lot. I'm not going to diss them at all by any stretch of the imagination. They played hard, right? That was a good series. Washington does not move me at all. And I think if the Rangers got that 8 seed, they upset Washington, 1, because of Shesterkin, and 2, because once you're in the playoffs, you're dragged into the fight regardless. Carolina beat up New Jersey Devils team. They looked good in that overtime, but they didn't dominate the way that team should have dominated based on how many guys and who was out, not just the quantity, but the players that were out from New Jersey. And there's a reason they have not gotten over that hump yet with Rod Brind'Amour and that group. So it's just, and Toronto, Ottawa, I'm not even going to talk about that. The Rangers would have beaten both those teams.
Toronto looked good until they didn't.
It's just Toronto. That's a team where I have no fear going against them in the playoffs, because they're their own worst enemy at any given moment.
How many goals does Austin Matthews have?
1.
How many goals does Marner have? 2?
1 or 2. I know he scored the first goal of the series. I don't know if he got any recently. I think he might have gotten 1.
How many does Nylander have? None?
I don't no, he has at least 1. He scored at least 5-on-3.
Okay.
Tavares has been really good, though, and he's a free agent.
It's just the same year. It's the same. They're going to get out of the series. They're going to get out of the Ottawa series, but they're going to get flattened by Florida.
Yeah, nobody's beating Florida right now. But they're not that far away, right? And you look at the series last year, Florida won the Cup. Florida looks like the same exact team this year. The Rangers were in that series. It wasn't a blowout. Like, they just dismantled a really good Tampa team. The Rangers didn't have that happen. And the primary reason was Shesterkin. And now you look at the rest of the roster, right? I don't know who's going to be back. I think all 3 of us agree Kreider's not coming back. In regards to the rest of the team, we're not sure at this point. But for everybody to regress the way they did last year, to me, was not a sign that those players are regressing, but more so it was just a deteriorating environment to be a part of for 82 games. I cannot imagine any world in which you have 7 to 8 of your forwards regress again next year and your defense continues to be as poor as it is under a new coach. So I don't think the Rangers are that far away from being cup contenders, but I do think that it's a couple of pieces in the right spot that puts them over the top. And the most important spot of that is the head coach. If there's a style of play that matches the modern NHL, the Rangers do have the skill to adapt to it. It's just a matter of getting these guys to buy into the fact that, yeah, I know you have a couple all-star appearances. I know you're making millions of dollars. I know you have a track record of being a good NHL player. But nobody gives a crap what you did 3, 5, 6 years ago. And nobody cares about how good you were making Eastern Conference Finals. This is New York. You haven't won a cup in 94 years. That mentality is going to get them over the next step. And until they have a coach that comes in there and does it, but does it the right way with the right systems, it's not going to happen. I don't think Gallant's systems were the right ones. I don't think Laviolette's were. I think Laviolette got a team that was just everyone was cooking last year. As much as they regressed this season, last season everyone set record highs. So it's somewhere in the middle. And I think that with the right coach, somewhere in the middle is good enough in the Eastern Conference, the way it's structured right now, to make a good run.
I'm watching this. I'm trying to watch this video again, but if you want to your point, Brendan, about moving off the puck, and I'm watching this as we speak, and it was a 4-on-4, so it's a little bit harder to, replicate it 5-on-5. Watch Valeri Nichushkin's goal against Dallas
that's a great example of it.
In game 2. Watch it in game 2. And again, it was a 4-on-4 scenario, so it wasn't 5-on-5. But you sit here, if you sit here,
I think it was game 3 because Colorado.
Yeah, game 3. Sorry, game 3. If you sit here, you watch, and you see Valeri Nichushkin walk down the middle of the ice untouched, and you see Matt Duchene in the corner with his hands up like this, like where the hell did everybody go? That's what moving off the puck does. That's what everybody cycling and creating confusion does. It allows for guys to basically have a breakaway inside the zone. And the Rangers, the entire season, were unable to do that because for one reason or another, nobody wanted to move. Whether it was laziness, whether it was effort, whether it was inability to move, I don't know. There were injuries. There was, a ton of other things that went into play with it. But that's the type of hockey that wins you games in the regular season, in the preseason, in the playoffs. If you get guys with high motors that can move and do move, you will create offense for your team. I know the verbiage is defense turns to offense, and to a degree that is the case. But when you have offensive zone time, you move. If you move, you will get chances. And that's all it comes down to. And the Rangers did not move the entire year.
And another thing that, and this is a little bit off topic from what we're talking about. Sure, if you want to haggle about $1 or $2 of the $11.5 million, go hit your head against the wall and argue with yourself. But one thing from watching the playoffs, there's some bad goalies in this league, and there's that some bad.
Canes game 5 was awful,
dude. Like that's the one like I'm thinking of because it just happened. But like there's some bad goals being let in, like Edmonton. Really, really bad. And look, when you go into Igor Shesterkin's advanced stats this year, he didn't even have a down year. It was just the rest of the team was so bad that he looked bad. There's not a goalie in the world. There are some of these bad goalies in the league that you could have put 2 of them in the net. With Rangers defense, they're probably still giving up goals this year for the amount of high danger slot chances. But like, we're lucky to have him at whatever cost because the amount of bad goals that I've seen go in this postseason from bad goalies, there's way more bad goaltending than there is good goaltending in this league. So that's just such a nice thing to like have. And sure, over the course of 82 games, he's going to get out goaltended a bunch. It's like baseball. The best team in baseball is going to lose 60 games. You got to just be okay with that. But man, oh man, on a night in, night out basis, specifically the playoffs, which knock on wood, we're hoping, like Brendan said, this was a 1-down year. And at the minimum, our floors, we can get back to that. That's the calling card right there. I mean, if you go back through his playoffs, there's been 1 or 2 games where you're thinking to yourself, what the hell is going on? But I mean, more nights than not, he's standing on his head.
You want to talk about bad goals?
And there's a lot of bad goals in this league happening in this playoffs.
Did you guys watch the Jets and Blues game last night?
Yes.
No.
Did you see Jimmy Snuggerud's goal? Second goal for Zook. Go look it up. And this is a quality goaltender. This is the guy that's going to win the Vezina for the second straight year. It's Connor Hellebuyck and third overall. Like, but we know
think about how much he shits the bed in big games, and like we hear that he's the best. Like Igor has this thing. Igor has this thing that other people don't have. In big games, he shows up.
Hellebuyck yesterday was beaten on the at real speed. I was watching at real speed, and I'm like, oh, that obviously that went 5-hole on him. He must have opened up his pad. Snuggerud keeps it on the ice and beats him to the left pad. He beats him past the left pad on the ice. Like that's your Vezina Trophy winning goaltender in the postseason. Like, you mean to tell me that the goaltender is not the most important position on the ice? Like, you throw Shesterkin on Winnipeg, it's 4-0. The series is done.
You throw Shesterkin.
Yeah, if you throw him on most teams, he has a cup. Honestly,
you throw Shesterkin on Edmonton this year. I know they're up in the series. They don't lose
any year.
Yeah, they don't lose those games. They win. You throw Shesterkin on the Hurricanes. They're in a cup. They would have won the series handily.
Think about it the opposite. You throw the Rangers, rest of the team in front of these average to bad goaltenders. They're lottery every year. So it like works both ways. Like he's so good, and like you got to watch almost other teams besides the Rangers to see that. Oh wow, that's a terrible goal. That's a bad goal.
Branch. He made it.
Did you see the replay, Zook? Do you see the replay?
I'm watching it right now. That's bad.
He made an incredible save.
Yeah,
with the stick. Like so,
that was nuts.
But he
almost thought it was getting deflected. Like there must have been something in his mind to let that go in.
But the point keeps getting harped on, and I don't know how many times we've talked about it, especially over the course of the season. The problem is not Shesterkin's money, right? And it's not Igor Shesterkin. How many of these teams that are going to go far in the playoffs, if you look up and down their roster, have guys on the third and fourth line that are making 1.5 or less that are key contributors to the group in the postseason? And when the Rangers were going on these runs, right, and they were makeshift rosters that had those bottom Zook on this show for 18 months was the biggest Tyler Mott fan in the history of the NHL for that specific reason. And you mentioned the movement, right? And you mentioned how other teams are outworked the Rangers this season. Well, the one line that was consistent in outworking the opposition was Edstrom, Rempe, and Carrick when they were all healthy and together. And the only reason that they were that, because those three guys are not the most skilled forwards on the Rangers roster or any NHL roster, but they didn't stop their feet from moving. And that's all. It's the simplest game if you're willing to put in that extra effort. But to me, the biggest problem with the forward group especially is not the lack of movement in the offensive zone, but the lack of movement in the defensive zone. And a lot of that had to do with the man-to-man. The Rangers do not have the winger personnel to ever play that system. I don't understand how that was not changed. But when you look at guys like Panarin, right, and Lafreniere, guys that are always offensive-minded and they're trying to fly the zone early, the only way you can get them to buy in and play is play a zone, know exactly where they're supposed to be, and they have to be moving down on the winged walls quicker. I can't tell you how many times watching these playoffs, watching the Rangers throughout the year, that there are crucial goals in every game that are scored because the defenseman beats the winger to the puck up the wall, keeps it in the zone, elongates the shift. Next thing you know, it's in the back of the net. And to me, I don't have the number. I don't know if anyone keeps track of the number, but there had to be at least 35% to 40% of the goals the Rangers had given up throughout the entire season had to be off of elongated shifts that were the puck was somehow kept in or a failed clear that was kept in at the blue line by the defenseman, and the winger was nowhere to be found on that coverage. That was the biggest red flag watching them throughout the season. And there's so many culprits. I mean, what was it? Second to last game of the season when Kreider just got the puck and blindly backhanded it up to the point. Next thing you know, it's in the back of the net. Like, that's just one that sticks out, but there's so many of them. And I look at the Rangers group, right? If Carson Soucy's back next year, right? Like, there's some players that just have to be gone. But there's a lot of players where if I'm Mike Sullivan, say, and I take the job, I am speaking to each one of these guys individually. And I'm asking for them to buy in, right? And it doesn't have to be them sign a contract, but you need to have some verbal buy-in from them. And if they seem tentative with the way that you want to play the game, right, and they're like, I'm not sure about that, or they say yes in the first couple of practices, they're dogging it, I go right to Drury, and I'm like, this is a guy that needs to go. And I think that until Drury's been this hardball GM, right? He's turned over this leaf where, I don't give a crap about the players. Well, if that's how you're going to be, then you better be that with everybody, right? And you need to own up to the trade that you made with Carson Soucy because that was hot garbage. And you need to look at the players that you have. And if they're not practicing hard, if they're not playing hard, and they're not looking like they're buying into the new coach's system, they have to be out the door. It's just that simple. If that's how you're going to be as a GM, that's how you have to be.
And what are the absolute haters that we see on social media at all times making fun of the 11.5 that say you can't build around the team say about the Florida Panthers? Because that
they're a tax-free state.
I mean, at the end of the day, they're still paying him $10 million. They're still paying this guy $10 million, which for the length of his contract is going to be way more of the cap. Excuse me, probably than Igor's 11.5 will be. And for the past 4 or 5 years, I just looked at their records. The Panthers have been right in the thick of it. They won last year. They're the favorites to win it this year. So it's clear. Talk about Toronto. I don't know the exact numbers, but I got to think Vasilevsky is being paid something that's higher up there.
Tampa.
Sorry, Tampa.
If Toronto and Vasilevsky,
when I say Toronto,
they might be a better team.
Well,
I think Vasily's at 8.5 or $8 million.
Yeah, so I mean, if you're telling me that $3 million difference between 8.5 and 11.5 is stopping you from winning a Stanley Cup, stop talking about your goaltender and talk about your GM. Because that's a GM
stopping them is the money given to Carson Soucy.
Exactly. It's
go down the list of teams
there's another
this year, and you look at teams that have these ridiculous amount of skill. Edmonton, Carolina, not as much Toronto, but who else? Who am I thinking of? Oh, Colorado. You go down that list of those 3 teams, there's no reason they shouldn't win the Stanley Cup. But you know why they probably will not? Their goaltending is awful. Their goaltending is awful.
No other position in hockey do you say, oh, they lost the game for you, or oh, they stole a game. And when you're in a series trying to get 4 between the other team, if you steal 1, your odds are tremendous. And if you have a guy like Igor that a lot of times steals you 2, because I feel like every time we win a series, 2 of the 4 games we win, we probably shouldn't have won. You're just starting halfway there, where these other teams with all the skill are working opposite. It's like, oh my God, our goalie's probably going to give them a game. We got to win 5 instead of 4 because one of these games are going to be given the other way. So, I mean, if you're just looking through the Rangers cap, I mean, you got to think that the best 11.5 in totality is being spent to Igor. There's probably 17.5 million different ways we could add Rangers contracts up to 11.5, and that's way worse than the 11.5 that you're giving Igor. I mean, you can go Loff and Soucy. I mean, that's just off the top of my head. Loff and Soucy. Rather get rid of those guys than Igor. So, I mean, it's just you're just hating on the team and needing something to complain about. So it's obviously very easy when a goal goes in to complain about the goalie. But I mean, man,
what do you think I'm doing? What do you think I'm doing with Juan Soto right now? What do you think I'm doing with him?
I mean, today was a great day for Juan Soto. I mean,
I have lost.
Yeah, I have thrown that shade at Soto this entire season. Whether it's his fault or not, but I digress. We're getting away from the Rangers at this point.
But it's such a simple sport, man. And listen, I'm not pretending I could be behind an NHL bench, right, or in an NHL front office. I think that if you gave me the chance, I'd gladly take it. But
take the salary for sure.
I would definitely would. I played since I was 3 years old, right? Clearly I wasn't the best, or else I wouldn't be doing the show. I'd be playing somewhere at a higher level. But
or you could do both.
I could do both. I mean, they're all doing it now. If Micah Parsons can do it, I can do it. But the whole concept of hockey, right? It boils down to just simple plays, right? And I can't tell you how many coaches I had from when I was 6 to when I was 18 that just kept saying, "Keep it simple, stupid." Right? Keep it simple, stupid. Same expression. I'm sure everybody that played the game has heard it, and
or did anything in life.
Yeah, right. Just keep it simple, stupid. And there's a reason the simplicity works. It's because it's easy to repeat. It's easy to continue to do throughout the course of the season, and it avoids the mistakes that come when you try to complicate it. And the Rangers, as they got in these downward spirals last year, instead of just going back to the simple basics, they kept trying to overcomplicate their game, and they kept trying to do too many things. And they relied on the numbers they had last year on the power play, thinking, okay, if we just zip the puck around without moving our feet, it's going to work this year. Well, players, especially nowadays, have tape on all of you, and they get that tape pretty quickly. They know what your tendencies are. You have to move without the puck and make the adjustments. And for the Rangers, there's just this overwhelming. It's like the cockiness of a team that won back-to-back cups when they have zero to show for it on their resume. And that's why I think fans are as pissed off as they are. And out of all the players that you could be pissed off about, the two people that got picked on the most were Adam Fox and Igor Shesterkin, which are the two players that should have never been picked on in the first place. If they just put Keandre Miller on Adam Fox's left side for a full game instead of just doing it with 2 minutes left, we'd be having a different conversation about Adam Fox. And if they just played, I don't know,
Keandre
Miller. But if they just played any semblance of slot defense at all last year, they'd be in the playoffs and we'd be having a much different conversation about Shesterkin. So those two guys, I really don't care if you watch this clip and are like, oh, yeah, I don't like Fox or Shesterkin. That to me is absolutely nonsensical. And if you are picking on those two guys when you have a litany of other players that you can, Will Cooley's great. Okay, Will Cooley is the type of player you need on your third line. But if the highlight of your season is Will Cooley and having 42 points, your team's not going to be in the playoffs. And that's what we're seeing right now. So look, Will Cooley deserves a spot on this team. I don't know what the contract situation is going to look like. I don't know how they're going to get that done, especially if he's asking for $5 million. But you keep giving $5-6 million to guys that are only going to have 42 points, and then you keep getting disappointed when the guys that only have 40 points have 40 points. That's a cycle that puts you in Islanders territory of just that dead zone in the NHL, where you're 8 seed or 9 seed, 10 seed, not good enough to get a high pick, not bad enough to get a high pick, and not good enough to make the playoffs or make a run. And the Islanders fired their GM. They're revamping. Rangers decided to give their GM a multi-year extension. And I mean, in my mind, he's got 2 years. He's got this year and he's got next year, because that's when Connor McDavid's a free agent, to make a huge splash and to make this team top to bottom better than it was last year. So I wouldn't be surprised if we start seeing some drastic stuff come July 1st. We'll
see. It's going to be, I mean, there's names out there. There's plenty of guys if you want to make a big splash. But again, where's the money coming from? And that's, if you trade off Kreider, and that's
why I look towards 26 when Panarin's off the books.
And we were talking about this last week with Colin, in that, he actually, Zook, you had gotten off when I had asked this question about offer sheeting Keandre Miller or Will Cooley. And part of what I had mentioned is, like, you probably need to figure out what you're doing with Chris Kreider before teams can offer sheet your players. Because if Chris Kreider is gone, that opens up money that you can then sign a Will Cooley or a Keandre Miller, whichever one you'd like to first. I think Miller's got arbitration rights. Cooley does not, or one of the two has arbitration rights. I might have that flip-flopped. But that makes it even more important this offseason. You got to figure out what's going on with Chris Kreider to be able, and again, we all think he's gone. And for the betterment of this franchise, he should be gone. Because if you keep him around, you're probably not going to keep around one of Cooley or Miller. And I think that would be a drastic mistake. Look at guys. I mean, look at Brett Howden. He's not a great player, but he fills a role so well in Vegas. He scored the overtime winner 2 nights ago. He's got 3 postseason goals. He's been an incredible player, role player for the Vegas Golden Knights. You think in the right setting that would have happened in New York? There's your third line player right there. There's one of your third line players is Brett Howden that you've let go because you couldn't develop him.
I've said it before. I'll say it again. If the Lightning can do what they did to Stamkos and let him go, there should be no reason to keep Chris Kreider around.
No.
Stamkos was much more impactful and meaningful to the Tampa Bay Lightning, who won 2 Stanley Cups, than Chris Kreider was. And Chris Kreider had a great Rangers tenure, right? They didn't win the cup with him. They didn't get over that hump. He's going past his prime now by a lot. Sorry, but your ship has sailed, right? And like you mentioned, the 2 guys that you just alluded to, right, Miller and Cooley, are both, 26 and younger? So those are the guys that you're supposed to be building around for the future. And if you choose to let one of those 2 guys go to keep the 33, 34-year-old guy around, it's a lost cause at this point. And if that happens, we will get on this show and I will change that logo from Rangers Radio. We'll pick another team. Because I'll
be in that protest down there. I will be in there.
Just you have to.
Down in that march.
Your sign might not match what their signs say. But you'll be voicing your opinion out there loud and clear.
If I just joined one of those protests with a trade Chris Kreider sign, do you think I'd be out of place?
That's funny.
Yeah, I mean, somebody will agree with you.
Yeah.
So I got 2 minutes because my physical therapist didn't text me that.
Didn't give you the 15-minute leeway,
which is wild. She literally texts me every time. So my last question is: Dave Maloney, Ryan Callahan, or Brian Boyle, or
Dave
none
Maloney.
of the above?
I love Dave Maloney.
Dave Maloney.
I think they could have.
Will they let him on the air?
Rangers biased. Oh, absolutely.
They should. He's the Jack
Absolutely.
Edwards of color commentators.
I think you give Brian Boyle the radio job with Alex Faust, and you let Dave Maloney rock. Kenny Albert and Dave Maloney have been calling games for 15 years.
Boyle and Callahan are kind of the opposite of Maloney too, where Callahan might be a little more in the middle, but like I love Brian Boyle for what he brings when he's in between the benches. But I feel like, which is kind of the opposite of what he has as a player when he was a Spark, he's very monotone a lot of times. Maybe that's because of the position that he has. But like,
new with this.
Yeah, like I don't know, like Micheletti wasn't going crazy, but especially this year when the team was bad, we saw Sam and Joe have a little bit of an attitude, especially towards the end when they probably knew that they were both leaving. But like
Dave Maloney in the booth
Maloney and Kenny Albert could have the potential to be an all-time booth.
All right, I'm gonna give you before you leave. I'm gonna give you, or before we end this show, this is an NHL question, and it's specifically the playoffs. The top 3 guys in the postseason right now in scoring are Leon Draisaitl, Adrian Kempe, which is an interesting name, but he's a very good player to be up there, and Connor McDavid at 3. Without looking, who is the 4th highest scoring player in the playoffs this year?
Oh my God, I hate when
It's
you
not
do this shit.
Svechnikov, right?
It's a tie. It's a tie. The other 2 are Dylan Strome and Kirill Kaprizov. I'm looking for this one specific guy.
West or East?
West.
Oh, so not Svechnikov.
Is it Logan O'Connor?
It is not. It is I'll give you division. It's in the Central Division. That doesn't help because Logan O'Connor is in the Central Division.
Are you going for Booch? Is that what we're doing here?
I'm not going for Booch, but you got the right team. You got the right team.
Oh man. It's not Snuggerud. It's not shit on that team.
Here's
is
one
Robert Thomas
final,
up there.
One final hint.
It's gotta be a king, right?
He was traded to this team last year. Last year.
Is it a
Traded
king?
to the Rangers last year?
No, he was traded to the team he plays for. It was it might have been early this year. Early this year, he was traded to this team.
Cam Fowler.
It is Cam Fowler.
Yeah, and that's everybody on Rangers Twitter was like, "Oh, you can't go for Cam Fowler."
Fowler.
We got Carson Suter instead.
Cam Fowler is 4th in playoff scoring with 9 points. He has
Nate Schmidt had 3 goals in the first 2 games too. It's like
1 goal, 8 assists, which is a crazy name to see up there.
Those are good numbers, man.
There's
a lot of bad goaltending in these playoffs. That's what I'm coming away with.
Buchnevich is 11th. He's 3 goals, 4 assists, 7 points. So
at some point, like I look, it was a terrible move, but at some point, let's move on.
No, I thought he was trying to tie it into the Rangers. That's why I thought
I'm not saying you, because that was just an answer to a question. I'm saying, like, people are still complaining on Twitter.
No, I know.
And it's like, he's a good player, but it's like, come on.
Yeah, it's time to move on. There's a lot more issues to keep us busy right now. But if you're looking for anything positive to come about, Monday, May 5th, NHL Draft Lottery, Rangers have a whopping 3% chance to move up.
Do the right thing, Bettman. Do the right thing and give us someone that we can trade away for a 3rd-line defenseman in a few years.
I'm telling you, that ping pong ball in 2020 got me through some dark COVID times. But clearly now you fast forward 5 years and we're not too thrilled about that's progressed. But we'll let Zook go. I mean, not much else to dive into Rangers-wise, but
we might.
NHL playoffs.
Is Sullivan hired?
Emily Kaplan 10 minutes ago. The Rangers are in advanced contract talks with Mike Sullivan. He's expected to be one of the richest coaching contracts in NHL.
Oh, perfect. Yeah.
And over under $7.5 million.
I'll say over 7 with a no movement clause.
Yes. An 11.75 no movement clause contract.
More than Igor Shesterkin, yeah. All right. Well, listen.
I'm not upset about Sullivan.
I'm not upset. It's just too quick. Too quick, man.
It's very quick. Let's go right before. It's very easy. 4 games tonight. Predictions. Montreal, Ottawa, and Toronto. Who do you guys got?
Ottawa, because I want to see the city of Toronto burn down.
Drama, I'm going to say Ottawa. But if Ottawa wins that series, I texted you guys, I'm going to be pissed off because I'm
going Ottawa, Vegas, Colorado, I kind of want to say Kings, but I'm going to go Edmonton.
That's smart. I'm going Leafs. I'm going Wild. I'm going Avs, and I'm going Oilers.
Yeah, so I got Ottawa. I'm going to go with the Avalanche as well. I think the Wild win. I think that's going. Both of those are going 7. And who was the last one? Who am I missing right now?
Kings, Oilers.
Edmonton's winning. That Kings, after they lost those 2 games at Edmonton, were toast.
Yeah.
So Edmonton's winning that series tonight. But 2 game 7s in the West would be nice. And
I'm in the line, though, Vegas, and it's funny because it's Vegas. Vegas is saying Vegas is going to win.
Yeah,
because they know everyone and their mother is betting the Wild plus 140 to go to Game 7.
Minnesota's been the better team that series.
Yeah.
Also, for you 176 sickos that are sitting here on a Thursday night and watching a show about the New York Rangers 2 weeks after the regular season ended, thank you very much.
We appreciate you.
You don't need to be here, and we really appreciate you being here, so thank you for that. But you are a bit of a sicko.
We got to let Zook get his oil rubbed on him and his legs stretched out. So
both knees.
That prime athletic body of his.
All right. Well, enjoy the playoff hockey tonight. It's been fun watching it without having the stress of worrying about it. So I will say that. And some huge games, man. If you're not watching that Colorado-Dallas game tonight, wake up and smell the
What
roses.
are you doing?
Because that's some series. All right, boys. We'll talk soon. We'll see you. I'm not here next week, but you guys might rock with it. May 15th, we might have a special episode. So stick around, even though it's the off season. We got some things cooking.
We'll see you guys.